Page 6. Simple Organisms and Plants. Genesis 1 verse 11 states, "And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so." Have you ever wondered how many kinds of plants there are? Scientists think there are about 320,000 kinds of plants. However, no one but God knows exactly how many kinds of plants exist in the world. Because there are so many varieties, most people find plants to be very interesting. Some plants are admired for their beauty and colour. Others are delicious to eat. Some plants are very familiar. Others are very unusual. Before we study plants, we will study some one-celled organisms that, in some ways, are similar to plants. Most of these organisms are too small to be seen without a microscope. Next, we will study lower plants that are many-celled but have simple structures and life processes. Finally, we will study higher plants with more complex parts. Page 7. One-celled organisms and lower plants. Many plants are classified as lower plants because they have simple structures and life processes. Lower plants do not have many of the complex parts higher plants have. One-celled organisms, such as bacteria, were once classified as lower plants since they have many plant characteristics. However, today, most one-celled organisms are no longer classified as plants. Bacteria. Bacteria are quite small. A few kinds of bacteria can be seen without a microscope, but for the most part, you could not see a single bacterium if it were all alone. Bacterium is the singular form of bacteria. Most bacteria can only be seen without a microscope if thousands of them are growing together. Bacteria are one-celled organisms. Each bacterium is only one cell, yet each is a complete organism, able to live and move and grow. Most bacteria, like plants, have a cell wall around them. The cell wall is a layer of strong material that surrounds and protects the bacterium. Only very small molecules of food can pass through the cell wall and enter the bacterium. Larger pieces of food that might cause harm to the bacterium cannot enter. All bacteria must live in warm, moist surroundings in order to absorb food and grow. Bacteria are carried by means of liquids, air, and direct contact. Can you think of an example of how bacteria spread from one place to another? One example is a sneeze. You have millions of bacteria growing on the inside of your mouth and nose. Since these places are both warm and wet, bacteria are able to live and grow there. When you sneeze, bacteria spread through the air because a spray of moisture leaves your nose and mouth. Since bacteria can be harmful, it is always important to cover your nose and mouth when you sneeze and to wash your hands often. Bacteria are classified according to their three different shapes. Bacteria in the first group are round-shaped. In order to move from place to place, round bacteria depend on the movement of their surroundings. Bacteria in the second group are rod-shaped. These rod-shaped cells give bacteria their name. Bacteria means rod-shaped. Page 9. Some rod-shaped bacteria grow in long chains of cells connected end to end like railroad cars on a train. Some rod-shaped bacteria have little whips that help them move. The whips move back and forth to move bacteria, much like the way you kick your feet and legs in water to move your body when you swim. The rod-shaped bacteria of one special group are shaped like bent rods. Sometimes scientists classify these bent rod bacteria in a group by themselves. These bacteria cause diseases in people and animals. Bacteria in the third group are shaped like spirals. A spiral bacterium has the shape of a curl of hair or a spring. Spiral bacteria tend to live in water. Some spiral bacteria, like many of the rod-shaped bacteria, have whips to help them move through water. Although some spiral bacteria are harmless, others may cause serious diseases in humans. Unlike plants, bacteria do not make their own food. Plants make their own food by using sunlight and materials gathered through their roots. Bacteria cannot make their own food and must eat food with which they come in contact. Some kinds of bacteria live in places where they can eat elements for food. Some of these bacteria use sulfur and iron by oxidizing them. Bacteria take in oxygen through the cell walls and combine the oxygen with iron or sulfur. Energy is released when iron or sulfur is oxidized, and bacteria live off the energy released in the reaction. Carbon dioxide is given off as a waste product when bacteria oxidize iron or sulfur. Other kinds of bacteria live on dead plants and animals. These bacteria break down the bodies of dead things. This breaking down process is called decay. Bacteria are able to eat or absorb dead things that are decaying. Bacteria live extremely short lives. They live only for a day or a day and a half. However, because bacteria multiply rapidly, bacteria colonies are formed in a very short time. Bacteria multiply in a very unusual way. They do not form seeds or eggs to cause new bacteria to be born. Bacteria multiply by dividing themselves. When a bacterium matures, it divides itself into two cells, forming two new bacteria. This reproduction happens very quickly, again and again until billions of bacteria are formed. If one bacterium began to divide itself, and the two new bacteria divided themselves, and the bacteria formed through this division divided themselves, and this reproduction continued for about 5 hours, over 1 billion bacteria would be formed from the one original bacterium. Page 11. Since bacteria multiply so quickly, why don't they just take over the whole world? The answer to that is very simple. The first part of our answer deals with what we said before about the short life of a bacterium. The second part of our answer is that food supplies run out very quickly when there are so many bacteria. When the food supply is used up, bacteria quickly die. Each new bacterium formed is a faithful copy of its parent cell. God has placed a system of code within each bacterium. This code causes it to produce exact copies of itself. The code within a bacterium is like a phone number. When you want to speak with someone on the phone, you call the person's phone number. You expect that person to answer because you called his phone number. The code that is in each bacterium was placed there by God, and all bacteria reproduce only their own kind of bacteria. Every living thing on Earth has a special reproduction code inside it. This code is God's special way of causing organisms to reproduce faithful copies of themselves. Some bacteria are very helpful to us. Some types of bacteria break down dead plants and animals to form soil. When plants and animals die, bacteria begin to feed on them, causing them to decay. The decayed bodies of plants and animals are then converted into rich soil so that new plants can grow. Before planting a garden, it is good to put compost into the soil. Bacteria feed on these materials and convert them into rich soil that produces healthy new plants. Without the help of bacteria, soil would soon be unable to grow new plants. All plants need nitrogen in order to grow. Plants get their nitrogen from the soil. Bacteria break down nitrogen in dead plants and animals and make it useful for living plants. The bacteria that cause nitrogen to be useful are called nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Some bacteria are helpful because they kill harmful bacteria. They are used to make medicines and can act as a barrier to prevent or fight an infection of microorganisms in the body. Some kinds of bacteria perform a chemical process called fermentation. In fermentation, bacteria change sugar and other substances into acid. This acid from fermentation adds flavour to foods and prevents harmful microorganisms from growing. Bacteria and other microorganisms cause apple juice to ferment and turn to vinegar. Many kinds of pickled vegetables, fruits, meats, and fish are prepared and preserved through the process of fermentation. Other foods you eat, such as cheeses, processed meats, and breads, are made through fermentation by bacteria. Page 12. As we have mentioned, not all bacteria are helpful to people. Some kinds of bacteria cause infections and diseases. Many years ago, a disease caused by bacteria spread from town to town and country to country. The disease killed millions and millions of people. People called the disease the Black Death. Black Death took so many lives it changed the whole course of history. Over the years, scientists have discovered medicines that can kill most harmful bacteria. Some medicines keep people from getting infected with a disease. Other medicines keep those with a disease from dying. Medicines can be very helpful. However, it is always very important to check with a parent before taking any medicine.